Monday equals MC squared, and today is February 15th. Hopefully all of you had a really nice weekend and time to feel into your heart center and celebrate Valentine's Day. And we had finally a day off, didn't we, Chris? So we took some time off and slept in. That was nice. And I don't know about all of you, but it's been kind of a rocky, I would say, about a week, I would say, maybe a week to 10 days. But I don't know, any of you felt that kind of the major energy shifts that was about 72 hours straight before Sunday? And finally, like around Sunday or Saturday evening, started to calm down. So I don't know if you had any glitchy things with computers or just energy in general, but it was like tearing me apart. So it was really tough, I have to say. And to stay grounded was a very important thing that I was doing the whole time. I think it's going to be semi-rocky this week too. So I think that's what I wanted to talk a little bit more about. And, we're still in this transition time, and it's still in the space of changes and liminal space that we've been talking about for a long time now, since last year. But it's a time of like a new creation. Like you feel like, what old ways I need to change, or maybe I need to do something a little bit differently, but then you just kind of know inside that if I rush into it, that may not be a good thing either. So there's a push-pull. That's what I'm feeling. And I thought if some of you are feeling that, I thought it might be good to go over some of these thoughts that I've been having and the feelings I'm experiencing. So I'll read some of it that I wrote up. I feel like there's a conflict inside me, and it's not just inside, but like outside pressures to outside demands to maybe desires that I have inside me that I want to express, to want to take steps forward, but feels like it's too soon, or maybe I need to pull back. And it just a lot of kind of it's not indecisiveness, but I'm deciding to not really, maybe I'm deciding to stay in this middle way a little bit more. So, and I'll just read some of these things I wrote up, but a sense of like, I feel enough on one hand, and there's a sense of, oh, not enough. I haven't done enough. I need to do more, that kind of a thing. To feeling like you're looking for security, stability, staying put versus shifting, and dramatic changes are happening, and you want to experience different movements, and a little more flexibility will be nice. And you feel that one day, or even you feel one way in the morning, in the afternoon, you're feeling this way. Other things were like familiar versus unknown and unfamiliar, just kind of swaying back and forth. It's not as dramatic as some of the other times, particularly last year, but I'm definitely swaying. Rigidity being sometimes like rigidity of being right, or so sensitive to things that I feel like I need to speak up. But Chris had to like pull me back and say, do you need to send that email right now? Or would you just sit back and think about it? And that's been very helpful. It's always good to have a person in your life that says that, right? Because I'm one of those people that I'm like, just the heat rises and I'm like, I need to speak up. And Chris is like, okay, let's chill a little bit. And he brings the ice bucket for my feet to go into. So that's been good. And so rigidity, I was starting to notice like wanting to be right, or this is the set way kind of thing, and not listening to flexibility or giving it some time or space. But, there's some interesting things as I'm seeing more possibilities, even though I'm feeling this push-pull inside me. I'm seeing interesting possibilities show up. Decisions I'm making feel really good in my gut, in my heart center. And other things are like dead end things or stalemate, versus break free of it or changes or opening to new directions, new and different concepts, generating new ways to navigate. So on one hand, there's a rigidity, there's like old concepts, old narratives are playing out, but I'm starting to be able to stand and see possibilities if I just turn a little bit. So that's been kind of fun too. It's not all irritating. Definitely some stagnations in the body. I have totally moved through that though. Yesterday, I actually did a coffee enema yesterday. See, on my days off, I'm doing coffee enema and infrared saunas. So I did that, and then things started to flow. So I felt really, really kind of connected, but I did feel within the stagnation, the opposite of that I was feeling, or maybe equally, is the chaos. I was feeling chaos, but it's not chaos is not organized, but it's just really disorganized thoughts. Couldn't focus. That was a big one. Let's see. The clean and simple is what you want, but then things tend to be messy right now, because things like you're almost like spreading everything on your desk and looking at possibilities and say, which one do I get started with? So it's a little bit messy right now before it can get organized. And routine versus innovation. So energetically, I think you're going to still feel some of this week. It's going to be a little bit choppy. And I do feel that it'll be choppy all the way up to the time that I'm going to start my 7 weeks course. So I'm really working on staying centered, so that I am not starting the course with the energetically feeling pulled apart. So let's see, things coming to a head. Okay, frustrations. And let me see what I wrote. I think this is the time that's really important to practice the 3 H's or 4 H's. So incorporating your head, your heart, your hara, which will be the gut, and your hands, to make decisions based on that. This morning I had a call with a person that she was telling me she's been taking this supplement, and she's like, I know it's supposed to be good. And she started telling me all the benefits of this supplement. The whole entire time I'm feeling this is not a good supplement for her. This is not good for her. But she just couldn't hear it. So I basically said to her, I want you to stand up. I want you to ask different areas of your body and then see which one speaks. What is it that you're trying to connect with? Is it what you intellectually think is good for you? Or are you digesting that? Is it good for your body to process this with right now? And so we did different areas, and basically at the end, she was able to come together, and the answer became no. I didn't tell her that I was feeling this was a total no, because I don't want to influence her in any way. But she was definitely, by the end of it, everything connected. And she's like, wow, I had not realized that I was making decisions only with my head. So, I think there's a lot of push pull even between the heart and the mind, and in the mind and the gut brain. And let's see, Chris, you want to add anything? I know I have some other stuff I have written here, but I'm going to pause and ask you.
I wanted to add that the way you might be experiencing this push-pull could be very physical in your body. And so for me this past week, I think the way I would describe it is it almost felt like being the nut in a nutcracker. And for me specifically, my spine, which I injured, I broke several vertebrae years ago, and that for the past few days has just been very, very sensitive and sharp with some pain. But what's interesting about it is that there wasn't really a negative experience or a negative emotion, even though it was painful. And it's a little bit hard to describe that because it's almost a feeling. Maybe it's because I have lived with this for so many years and I've learned to understand that when that feeling comes, it's something passing through. So it's a transitional kind of experience. It's not something that's going to last for forever and ever. But it's very much consistent with what Masami was talking about, with this period of, I don't know, tension and maybe frustration or feeling like things are really squeezing. So you might have had that kind of experience as well. And I know we're going to come to this in a minute, but we're going to talk a little bit about gratitude. I can come back to that if you want me to come back to that later.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that practice. Let me maybe give some ways to navigate this, because I think a lot of us are going to be experiencing that, like extreme weather too. Cheryl said that there's 4 inches of snow in Houston. So I thought it was only an inch or so, but 4 inches is a pretty decent amount of snow. And they're not having any electricity, and it's like 18 degrees. That's pretty cold. So yeah, there's just kind of a lot of stuff going on all over the place, all over the world. And I think some of us are feeling that inside. So one really good thing, if you could focus on it, is when you have a push-pull energy inside you, it churns things. That's kind of like even like a stomach action of digestion. It's like a push-pull to churn things. So if you've had some things that you've been wanting to do, like launch something or something very creative that you've been working on, then focus on, I wrote down here, but is this, like, you want to ask yourself, is this coming from the place of highest good? Okay. And is this for the communities to elevate together, for the society to elevate together, for the good of the earth? Maybe put it through that kind of thoughts, and it's kind of a call to action when you're getting push-pull, because that means there's plenty of energy that is wanting to move forward, but situationally or cosmically, or just where we are right now so far, it's only February, right? That you might be feeling like, oh, maybe I'll wait till April, or, something like that. But there's some movement starting to happen. That's why you are feeling the push-pull energy. If you didn't have anything that you wanted to move forward with, you wouldn't feel this. You would just not feel any kind of the internal movements. So use it to your benefit and use it to your powerful motivation, and move forward with whatever that you've been wanting to do, thinking about doing. Maybe small actions are fine, but start taking some of those actions so you're not stuck in that space, and you can digest some information and move it through. So get clear on your insights and make conscious choices, and filter it through. Is this good for my head, my heart, my hara? And then, is this coming from the highest good? Okay. And Chris will take us through a gratitude meditation shortly, but I wanted to say, keep your focus on the desired outcome, and don't let the anxiety and nervous energy take over. Let's see, we are being led to the new possibilities and the unknown space. So do not recreate or seek for the old narratives to comfort yourself, or get you just not doing anything because you just want to be stuck in your old narratives. Okay. Look for new ways of doing things. Maybe what you've been doing up to this point isn't quite working. Maybe that's why you're feeling the push-pull. And I'll give you an example of mine a little bit later, but I'm definitely feeling that right now. And so my inner guidance is saying, you got to start moving differently. You need to conduct things differently. So that's one. And breathe differently. Change the shapes of your breaths. Change the body lung capacity. Maybe work with your diaphragm. Maybe stand up and do different stretches throughout the day so you can breathe differently, so you can move differently. And then let's see. So staying flexible, but stay grounded. And flexible has its own issues as well, because when we work with some clients, some of them are just too flexible. and they go into hypermobility, hyperextension of their joints, but also they become so flexible that they are adding too many things back into their diet that I recommended, or nutritional protocols that I've recommended. They're going a little too flexible. So come back in, just kind of a tight fit, a little bit more, but within that have movements with it. Approach a situation with creativity, innovation, and new outlook. And that's going to help you with the neuroplasticity as well. To change the wiring of your brain, you must fire things differently, right? So you want to think differently, you want to move differently, you want to breathe differently. You want to wake up and do different morning routines. If you've been doing the same meditation for the last 5 years, it's time for you to change. Even you've been doing the same thing for the last 5 weeks, maybe it's time for you to change, because the seasons, we are shifting into different season as well. So those are some things that I wanted to say. Okay, and then a couple of things are become centered between the heaven and earth. So finding your connections between the heaven and the earthly matter, and you are suspended in between. So I've talked about this a long time ago before, a couple of times, but your soul is housed inside you. And so your soul is always kind of reaching. And the spirit, okay, and the soul loves to like have an expression through your body. So it's like always trying to communicate with you through your body. And sometimes they show up as aches and pains, or sometimes like insights, or sometimes like buzzing in the back, your spine, and so on and so forth. Soul does a lot of tricky things to us because it wants us to express our soul, right? And the spirit has come into part of our living. I mean, it's a part of our expression is our spirit, but spirit will always miss the heavens. So the spirit is always like, can we go home? Can we go home? And the soul is like, well, no, we got soul contract to fulfill here. So stay with us here, So there's that conflict between the soul and the spirit that can happen. It's a beautiful exchange, but that can get pretty intense at times. So check in with yourself with that. And decide to stay centered within you. And the center of you isn't always about the heart. For women, the center, the gravitational center actually is a little below belly button. And so I kind of cringe sometimes when people are always muscle testing things right on their heart. And that's the expression of your center. That is the expression of where you're grounded, but try to go a little lower and feel into a little below your belly button area. And I think that's about it. And not get, that way you don't get thrown off by the drama of the world and around your maybe world you live in, neighborhoods, weather changes, and so on and so forth. Okay, so off to you, Chris.
Okay, so I'll just add a couple of thoughts to that. So one of the things that I think comes up a lot when we're feeling this push and pull is we have to check in with what is our sense of expectation? What are we looking at in terms of what we wish to have happen, or what we hope to see come in the future, or in a given situation? What are the ways that we think it should come about? And so we set ourselves up when we look from that habitual standpoint, which is very easy to find ourselves in. It's a natural thing for us actually to stand in that place of expectancy without even realizing we're doing it. So what I would also encourage you to pay attention to is, are you holding on to an expectation about a moment, about a situation, about an outcome? And if you are, check in with that and see if that expectation is also having an influence on what happens as a result. For example, if it doesn't work out the way you hoped or wanted, Do you feel disappointed or cheated or gypped? Does it feel like, you never get what you want? And just pay attention to those kinds of things. So I'm going to come back to a couple of things. We had said we were going to talk more about the heart this month, and yesterday was Heart Day, but we should make every day Heart Day, I think. And it's true, we don't always have to look at the heart as our center necessarily in terms of our physical body, but the heart really is the conduit. It really is that between place. And it's important to remember that the heart is something that really doesn't come to its full form of being unless it's broken, unless it has been broken, unless it experiences breakage and sorrow and hardship and all of those things, grief, that make us feel like things are more than we can bear. And so it's not always just about having it the way we would prefer it to be. And it's really important to be with those times of hardship and breakdown and, these wild times of just feeling like things are maybe even out of control. So I want to come back to this quality of heart. I'm gonna throw a couple of quotes out that come to mind. And one of these was one I just thought of as Masami was talking, and it came from a teacher of mine who was quoting a conversation he had with a rabbi. And the rabbi is a fairly well-known rabbi. I think it was Zalman Schachter is his name. They're having this conversation, and the rabbi said, the heart needs a thou. Okay, the heart needs a thou. In other words, the heart needs an object for its energy, for its love, for its attention. And in the course of that conversation, my teacher came back with the response, the heart is the thou. The heart is the thou. It's the object that we're thinking about when we're thinking about the object. It's actually speaking to our own heart. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to actually address our own heart with our reaching out into the world and our seeking and our, challenges and trying to be our best and become who we are. Where it's a reach toward our own essence, our own being that our heart represents. So I wanted to speak just for a moment. We're going to do a short practice here, but I wanted to speak to this heart quality of gratitude. And gratitude is a really interesting quality. There's a lot of energy around gratitude. And I wanted to just point out, in case you're not aware of it, that when we start to go into a state of gratitude, it actually changes the bioelectricity of our bodies. So our hearts, our brains, they change how they behave. And some of you may know about this phenomenon called coherence, which is it's an electrical, it's a physics term actually, but it's the bioelectric field of our body that's largely produced by our heart, but also our brain. They start to line up with each other. They start to sync up, particularly when we are in this state of gratitude. And so gratitude has this quality about it, which is opening us to this new possibility. Masami just spoke to several points about how it's important to move differently and to open up ourselves to the unknowns. And gratitude is a really helpful way to do that. And it's also something that has the quality of receiving. And it's not necessarily receiving a thing. It's the state of receptivity that opens up. Because what happens is when we are getting locked down, physically in our homes, and we're feeling like our options are narrowing, we don't tend to open up our hearts. We tend to protect them. And we forget, I think, a lot of the time to come back to this feeling of gratitude, unless there's there's a concrete reason for it. You know, I'm thankful for something. So what I wanted to have us do here is we're going to do a very simple breathing practice and using the word thank you. And we're just going to tie together two practices. One of them is what you could call functional breathing, which is just extending out the length of our inhale and our exhale to about 5 to 6 seconds each. And we're going to combine that with saying just in our minds. We don't have to say it out loud, although you can. I mean, if your microphone is closed and you want to say it out loud, you can certainly do that. But you can also just say it quietly in your heart. And I encourage you to try to feel it in your heart and not think it in your head. There's a different quality if you do that. You can start in your head to get going, but then drop it down. Start to feel it. And so here's how I'm going to recommend that we do this. And I'll just talk us through it at first. And if you can see Masami, she has her hand on her heart. That's a helpful way to remind yourself where to put your energy and your attention. But as you breathe, let's go ahead and start this one with an inhale. Sometimes it's best to start with an exhale, but maybe you sigh first and then you take an inhale. But we're going to inhale for about 5 to 6 seconds. So I'm just going to talk through it and then start following with your own rhythm. Okay, so here we go. You can close your eyes if you like. So we're going to inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale with the words, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now with your own rhythm, let's just do this for about a minute or 2 minutes and just notice as you drop down into your heart how your body, your mind, your whole presence changes. And as you're practicing, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not toward anything specific. It's just the quality of thankfulness and gratitude that you're invoking and opening toward. And let's finish with one more cycle of an inhale, extended slowly through your nose. And one more exhale with the thank yous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you come back just to your normal awareness in this virtual space here, I'm going to share 2 quotes. One is from the Roman philosopher Epicurus, who said, Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you don't have. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. I'll read that again. Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you don't have. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. And the second is from the wise piglet from Winnie the Pooh, who said, or who was described in this way. Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude.
Could you read that one again? It's my favorite.
Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude.
Thank you. I do feel a lot more settled. How about all of you?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from some of you after doing this, what you noticed. Yes, Piglet does rock.
Rocks. Yeah. How about you, Iris? Are you feeling a little bit? Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
More calm, expansion.
More calm. Good. Yeah, it's not a talkative crowd today, I guess.
Well, between getting
Well, maybe we're just so settled. We don't need to go and start chatting too much, I guess.
Yeah, a lightness.
Good. Yeah. It's a very simple practice. Calm and grounded, more calm and focused, a wake of kindness washing over me. I'm more grateful for my life. Thank you, Richard.
Cheryl mentioned the difference between the head thank you and the heart thank you. I want to just comment on that again. That's a good observation. There's a whole other world of practices that get into things in this way that we don't have time for today, but really notice that when you go from saying something to thinking something to feeling something in your heart to then just embodying it, there are all of these different levels of experiencing this one thing. You could just use gratitude in that practice we did to feel all those different ways that you can experience that and deepen it. So I'm glad you noticed that, Cheryl. Cynthia says, would you give us an example of a soul sending a message via pain?
So yeah, that's a great question, actually, because it's confusing, isn't it, when I first talked about it? But the body speaks in the language of pain. And pain sounds so negative, but it's the language. It's like we're speaking in English right now, and other places in the world will speak in different languages. Body chooses the language called pain, but the pain will have many different sensations, from buzzing to maybe things of like Chris was experiencing zapping feelings. He was feeling quite a bit of nerve energy that was moving through. Also stuckness or restrictions in breathing, those can be pain. And why do bodies speak these kind of pain? And pain isn't always negative either, because it gets our attention, and it's the best way to reach us. Reach our attention is to speak in pain, because most of us don't notice things when things are going well. And this is something Chris and I have learned over the last decade or more, in my case is 20 years of working with people, is that when things starts to go better, they don't notice the things that they started to feel better, and they will only pick the things that are painful, because we have a negativity bias in our mind and our thinking, because that's what kept us on this earth, is to always look for things that are painful or not going well, to fix it. So that got us to innovate. That is what led us to be where we are. So it's not bad, but that is the language that the body chooses. And because your soul is housed in this body, when you go outside of your equilibrium, or when you're not following your direction that the soul contract really would like to go with, you will feel dislocated, or you'll feel fragmented. You feel pulled apart. You'll start to feel this push and pull, but not in a helpful way, like you get ripped apart kind of a feeling. So soul will use that kind of a language, because pain is the only way that most of us get attention. Like we don't hear ourselves unless it comes in the language of pain. So that's what it does. So when there's a physical pain, emotional pain, physiological, structural, biological, any of those things are speaking in any of the language underneath the pain, you want to stop and say, okay, am I following the path that I'm supposed to be on? Or did I veer off into something else, and maybe I just need to gently come back, and so on and so forth. So I hope you can learn. The whole point is to learn the language of this body, and it's learning the vocabulary of pain, so you can translate it and you can attend to them. So it's not that it's soul is trying to harm you or make it difficult for you. It's just that's the quickest way to get your attention. So I hope that makes sense.
I'd like to add to that too, that pain is something we have to think about this practice we just did of saying thank you. Sometimes if you can say thank you to the pain, you can actually hear the message that is behind the physical sensation. And there are a couple of things that I would encourage you to look for. One is to notice how much there is a tendency to want to swat the pain down, to get rid of it, almost feel an angry reaction to it. Like, oh, why is this happening to me? Stop, just stop. I don't want this. So you may notice that's kind of like the survival instinct kicking in. But pain is a very subtle messenger, and it's a good question about what that might be trying to communicate with you. I'm going to put up in the chat something we've talked about before, which is this RAIN technique. And we've practiced it a few times on these calls, but this is an opportunity for you to use this in a very practical way. And that's what this kind of thing is for. It's to bring mindfulness to the pain and to open up to the subtlety of it, because pain is a very subtle thing. And for those of you that have had chronic pain from injuries or other factors in your life, you know that it does speak in a variety of voices, and it's almost like different personalities come through it, different messages. So recognize it, first of all. So you're acknowledging in that recognition, you're allowing it. You're not trying to just shut it down as soon as you feel the sensation. You're investigating it with kindness. And that's where you get to the subtlety of it, is just feeling into it and seeing what's there. Does it need my touch? Do I need, Masami showed us the practice of, the hands holding each other. And just that act of kindness that you can do for yourself, or putting a hand on, that sort of thing, putting your hand physically on the pain, is a way for you to investigate it with kindness, as you're allowing for it to just continue to happen without trying to shut it down. And then the last one is the nurture step. Okay, you're nurturing it. That also involves finding out what it needs and helping to provide what it needs. So I think those are some key pieces. These are great questions and observations.
So another question, I think it's Samantha here, singing Phoenix, I think. Says, might you say what does a tender bruised feeling on the skull means? So if it's, in the Mohawk line area, you definitely, there's a sleep issue involved in it. So if you're lacking in sleep, that area can get pretty tender. Also, that's part of there's a sinus line here. So there could be some sinus congestions that are starting to happen. And that could impact your lymphatic system, so the drainage of the brain. I would actually lightly massage that though. I mean, I wouldn't go into it and dig in, but I would lightly massage that. That can be helpful. You might want to look into doing like a neti pot to see if your sinus can decongest. That could be very important. And then look at how's your sleep been. Is it a quality sleep, and so on and so forth. But if it's in that area, it's got a lot to do with the energy flow too. So it's more of a heaven energy coming into the earth side. So, one of the things that the Lao Tzu talks about too in the Taoism is basically you want to learn how to exist between the heavenly law and earthly matter and earthly law, and they don't always work together. So on earth, things are always changing. You always have to work on yourself. Self-care is a constant thing. You can't just not drink water today and decide, oh, well, I'm a spirit, so I'm just not going to drink water. Like, it doesn't work that way. So it's this conflict could happen between what you need to do on this physical level, and there's this heavenly law where all good. Everything is working just the way it should be, even though it may appears to be chaotic. It's all working in sync somehow. We can't figure it out, but that kind of a conflict is always within us between our soul and the spirit, as well as the physical matter and our spiritual desires to return to the sky, return to the heavens. So sometimes that kind of a push-pull feelings could show up in the tenderness on the skull. So I would, again, use maybe the rain meditation that Chris just talked about, and recognize it, allow it to kind of come in, and investigate that using possibly light touch or breathing. Check in with your sleep, how you're doing with digestion, and so on and so forth. But then nurture the fact that we're all suspended in a way in between these two forces all the time. And it's not always in perfect balance, and it's okay that it's not always in perfect synchronized movements. And it could be just sounds that don't quite fit, or keys that are a little bit off. But that's sometimes what happens till we can go and tune it again. So hopefully that will help you to go a little deeper. Okay. Yeah. You're welcome. And what if you've never found your path yet and always then feel the inner, what is that word?
Amorphousness.
Amorphousness. What's that mean?
Like it doesn't have a clear shape. So there's not a clear, distinct sort of thing to interact with.
There are not many people that are very clear, like their path is paved and has all the lines drawn already. I have yet to meet too many people like that. And they're usually very boring. So, I say, let it be muddy, let it not have its perfect shape. Let it have some crumbling spaces, and then maybe there'll be some beautiful trees that you can sit by to take a little rest, have some tea and have some rice cakes. That's what my grandmother Huh?
I said, however.
No, but hold on. Yeah, I mean, however, what do you mean? No, like my mother would say, okay, have some tea and have some onigiri. Okay, onigiri is the rice cakes. She would be like, stop talking about how difficult life is. Sit down and have some rice cakes. So that's kind of what I think. But however, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say the amorphousness is perfectly fine, and it's not something to worry about. Um, and in a way, it's not like you have to really worry about finding your path either, because, like it or not, you're on your path. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that where you are is exactly where you need to be, because you're here and you're not somewhere else. And
Yeah,
so
you're on it, Cheryl. You're on your path. I can feel that.
I was
It's
going
just,
to,
I think it's the expectations that kind of gets in the way of this isn't how it's supposed to look like, or I wanted it to be this color, or I wanted to have this kind of feeling. And that's what we struggle with, right? So tune back in to your body. And I bet you some of these thoughts that you just wrote is probably coming from your mind much more than your gut brain or your heart brain. So come back to these lower centers.
I was going to say you can also just use the practice we did without pointing it at anything in particular. And you may find that practicing that gratitude and saying thank you to nothing in particular sort of has an effect of being like a compass needle and will help to point you in the direction that your life is drawing you toward. And if you don't place the emphasis through your head and you go through your heart, through your gut, through your body, then you may find that you are feeling toward it without rationally understanding what the it actually is. And that's why it's okay for it to be amorphous. It doesn't have to have a really clear shape. I mean, the future is foggy for all of us. So sit with it and feel it. And I think by practicing that feeling, you'll have more confidence in the direction that you're already on.
Yeah, and it's the importance of coming back to this moment, I think, coming back to this moment. Because when we get anxious is when we're worrying about the future. When we get overwhelmed is when we're fearing about maybe, or, regretting what you didn't do quite right yesterday, or maybe you didn't say something the right way, or maybe you didn't get work done yesterday. So usually we're getting pulled between the future and the past, and that's what fragments us. So coming back and doing that thank you, or just last week I did, the breathing that's like a beginning, middle, and an end with the breath, and then come back to again to that beginning, middle, and an end, and see if you could just come back to this breath and use this breath as your tool as often as you can. Yeah. You're welcome, Cheryl. So, and I need to answer some questions that came in. Is that okay? So one was, she didn't go into it much, but she said, can you talk about sunglasses and sunscreen? So I'm just going to take off from that semi-vague question. Okay. So sunglass question is really interesting. We ask our clients about this when we work with them one-on-one. We say, do you have to wear sunglasses every time you go outside? And if the answer is yes, I have to have sunglasses, or I could barely stand it, then we look into that person's energies, and we will particularly go to their adrenals. So if you're always squinting your eyes are bothered, and you go outside and you have to have sunglasses, that means you're adrenally very fatigued. So we say, Chris and I have been working on our adrenals for a long time now, and we can honestly go outside walking, even in the brightest day, in the middle of the day, and we would sometimes choose not to wear sunglasses. And we are able to do that now. And that's our indicator of being able to say, okay, my adrenals are pretty good today. That doesn't mean it's always like that. If I push myself too much, we're working too hard, and then we notice ourselves needing sunglasses and we know like, oh, we need to take care of our adrenals. Okay. So it's actually an interesting question if that's where you were going with it. And then the next question was sunscreen. So, and it was also kind of open-ending question. So I'm just going to take my own shot at it. So sunscreen, I'm assuming whether you should wear your not sunglasses, a sunscreen or not. This is a little bit more complicated question than you think, because when you are one of those people that burn easily, you get red easily, you get sunburn easily, or even toxic impact from the sun, too much sun, or even just a little bit of sun will impact you. That means we have to go towards the place of you're not digesting fats. And when you're not digesting fats and you're also not eating adequate fats, but balanced fats, you are going to get impacted by sunlight and you will need sunscreen. And personally, I hardly ever wear a sunscreen. And I know people will be like, oh my gosh, you live in Colorado, high altitude, you should be wearing sunscreen. I wear a hat if I'm going for a walk and it's, pretty sunny or something, but I don't wear a sunscreen. And often people that struggle with the sun damaged skin and things like that, you have to go straight to the liver and the bioflow. And then also you need to look at zinc. But it's a lot to do with the fat digestion, and you're not digesting fats. That's why you're needing sunscreen. So always look for sunscreen that is, obviously naturally made, and none of those, tropical canna, I don't know, those are drinks. You get the point, Iris, right? So those things, please don't put that on. Okay. And there are many, many like natural sunscreens out there. However, I'm a huge fan of getting some sun. Like, get the sun on your belly, get your sun on your thighs, get the sun on your torso. That's very, very important. So hopefully you can do some of that. But if you're always needing sunscreen, or you just feel like you're going to just come home bright red, then you need to look at your digestion. You need to look at liver digestion. Okay. And I had one question about probiotics, and the probiotics was, I get a lot of clients start taking probiotics and then just kind of randomly. Megaspore is a big one. He's been pushing his product a lot. So there's a lot of people that are taking megaspores or maybe like high dose of probiotics. And obviously, we have to take care of our microbial colonies, and inner ecology is very important for us. Okay. We have 100 trillion microbes in us, including, microbial things are not just bacteria, but viruses and fungus and yeast and parasites and so on and so forth. We have a lot of guys living inside and outside of us, right? But it's not a good idea to just randomly start taking probiotics if you're constipated, you're having diarrhea, you're having irritable bowel syndrome, you got SIBO going on, you got, kind of itises, diverticulitis to any kind of colitis. Those will actually irritate by taking probiotics. So I don't go to probiotics right away. I always go to the upper GI issues first, fix that first. Fix how you're eating, what you're chewing, what you're eating, how you're digesting, when are you digesting, and where your nervous system is. Then we can slowly shift towards giving you some probiotics. So otherwise, I call them they sometimes will have rave parties in there, and they just, eat your undigested foods and fart away, and they will get distended, and they're just going to have a big old party in your gut. So probiotics could almost become harmful to your system. So don't jump into probiotics till you figure out what's going on above that in your GIs. Okay. Anything, Chris?
Just a couple of questions. I'm going to go back up. There's a question from Susanna about melanoma and sunscreen. So she said, after being diagnosed with melanoma, which was removed, should I wear sunscreen?
Well, we're not doctors, so we can't tell you exactly what you should do. But like I said, sunscreen is kind of like, what's the best analogy? It's helpful, if you have sensitive skin or you've had these kind of diagnoses and so on and so forth. But you have to still look at the cause. It's the same idea as removal of your gallbladder. Just because you removed your gallbladder doesn't mean what caused you to have sludgy bile in the first place got resolved or you've addressed it. So why is your skin expressing these things? And this is where you have to go to the liver, and you have to go to liver in the bile and the gallbladder health. So I would still do that. I would still, look into the balance of your fats, how you're digesting your fats, take care of that. Then, look for very natural sunscreens are out there, and that can be very helpful, right? But I think we just think that if we just put the sunscreen on, we'll be good to go. And it doesn't work like that. It's an inside job, really. It's truly what happens inside is what gets expressed out of the skin. So, there's a lot of gadgets out there, right? From laser treatments to zapping things to microneedling to who knows, God knows what. Those are fine, but it's still outside in input. And as many of you, I'm interested in more of a bottom up approach, inside out approach. So that's where I would go. Yeah.
So
You're welcome.
Cheryl asked a question which almost has the same answer you just gave. She says, besides magnesium, what's the most effective to lower blood pressure? And so back to what you just said about looking at why is your blood pressure elevated in the first place. And so Cheryl, just think about blood pressure as a lot of it is being driven by inflammation and the shrinking of your arteries, of your cardiovascular tissues. So there are a lot of things that contribute to that. And like Masami was just saying, the liver is going to play a role in that. Digestion is going to play a role in that. Sleep is going to play a role in that. How you are with stress is going to play a role in that. So is magnesium helpful? Yeah, absolutely. It will help to calm down your tissues. It helps them to relax. So it physically does that, but so does breathing. Something we've talked about before. We talked about it we've done it in classes too, but just slow breathing, like what we just practiced, actually helps you retain carbon dioxide in your blood. And it also helps you to increase your nitric oxide levels. And both of those things help with blood pressure because they're what are called vasodilators. So they help to spread open the blood vessels and allow more volume to pass through, and that lowers the pressure. So it is an inside job.
Yeah, it's an inside job. And whenever I work with clients with the heart issues equals there's been nourishment issues. So lack of nourishing foods that you've been eating or digesting. So heart issues is not separate. Heart isn't just expressing pain. Your heart issue equals your diet must be looked at. That is
a follow-up question that is confirming the direction, and we'll have to wrap up in a minute here. But Cheryl, it sounds like what you're describing is something, there's a lot to do here with your blood sugar regulation. And when you see those red bubbles, you want to talk about that?
Oh, no, it's okay. No, Cheryl, yeah, you probably need to talk to me in person, or I don't know, you've signed up for the course, but please do, which starts this Thursday, everyone. And I just wanted to say about the traumatic brain injury, lost skill to squint my eyes. So Clemmy, is saying that, and, when you have traumatic brain injuries, it's extremely exhausting to your entire body, right? It shocks the body. And that means your adrenals are going to be pretty shocked by it and then exhausted by it. And what happens is the traumatic brain injury will inflame inside your brain. So then the connection is called HPA axis, but hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis is going to have a feedback loop that gets a little bit glitchy. And so what that means is that you may have to wear very dark glasses like you are to improve, to do it, and then it'll slowly improve. But you also want to take care of your adrenals, also lower your inflammatory intake of foods, sugar and white flour and so on and so forth, and make sure that your brain is not inflamed. I would definitely recommend you to do some fish oil or something like the omega-3s to make sure your brain is not inflamed. But as the inflammation comes down, your HPA axis will start to move better. Then your eyes will start to improve also. So that's all connected. So keep up with the whole system, do the whole thing inside out. Okay. It's definitely an inside job. Okay. All right. So I think we're, I just want to announce everyone that I have 3 things. One, I sent it on the email that I was just on the podcast, and it's a really interesting interview. So she works with rosacea and skin issues. So she interviewed me and we went into some very interesting places, but that was a really cool interview. So if you want to listen to it, I put the link on the email. And also, Get Your Mojo Back Summit is going to start on Thursday also. And I'm actually, it's already recorded and interviewed, and I'm on the 18th. So that's this Thursday. If you want to listen, Chris has put that up. And there's some great teachers are getting interviewed on that summit, Get Your Mojo Back. And she's fantastic too. So, and my course starts, the 7-week course starts this Thursday. So please sign up if you haven't and you've been waiting, please do. It's just like unbelievable right now what's coming to me and all the stuff that I cannot wait to share, but to do together for 7 weeks. Very excited. So yay, Cheryl, so excited about the course. Me too. So please show up and be ready to take on this journey for 7 weeks together. We will set up an group intention, individual intentions, and then we'll go step by step on 7 Bs. So I look forward to being with you all. Okay.
One last thing.
Yeah.
Clemmy asked if we knew what time the Getting Your Mojo Back starts. It starts on the 18th. I don't think there's a set start time. All of these sessions have been pre-recorded. So if you just click on the link and you get yourself signed up, you'll get the information directly once those things are up and ready.
Yeah, the Get the Mojo Back is interesting. I talked about weight loss resistance stuff from body, mind, spirit level. So I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And I was writing it out, typing it up. And then so I shared some fascinating things that came through me. And we had a great time talking. So I think you'll learn a lot from it, but also just a lovely bunch of teachers that she's been interviewing. So definitely sign up for that, please, too. Okay. So there's a lot going on, and I'm needing to spend a little more time tuning into my 7 Bs because I really want to give as much of what I can to this course. So I'll be taking the next 2 Mondays off so I can really focus on creating and being in the zone. So I will be back on March 1st. Is that right, Chris?
That's right.
Yeah,
And
we'll
also,
be back on March 1st.
And also thank you to Clemmy and Iris for signing up for the 7 Bs course.
Yay!
Look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, it's going to be great. And Chris has been making such amazing PDFs, like downloads. And oh my gosh, I'm just like, I can't believe how creative Chris is. So when you see all the downloads, they don't come from me. I write the content, I send it to him in black and white, as boring as it comes. And he puts these gorgeous things together. It's pretty awesome. So come prepared. Okay. There'll be some major release that I think it's going to happen on the first module. Like, I'm so excited because we're going to dive deeply into the lungs and emotional side a little bit more. I'd like to go a lot deeper in this 7B. So get ready. Okay. Strap yourself with the seatbelt on. Okay. Put the sunscreen on and have some fish oil before you join. Okay.
And thank you all for your support and for coming back for our sessions together on
Thank
Mondays.
you, everyone. Soy, am I saying her name right? Soying? That's a cool name, Soying. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And so if you have questions, you can always, put it on the Facebook page and I'll try to answer some of these questions on our Monday calls. All right. So until March 1st, see some of you, I won't see you till then. And many of you, I hope to see you on starting Thursday. Yay. Okay. Talk to you soon, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.